The forest was ancient, its towering trees whispering secrets that only the wind understood. Massey walked through the dense undergrowth, his worn boots crunching against fallen leaves. He was a simple herbalist, spending most of his days collecting rare plants and mushrooms that grew in these forgotten woods. The village folk called him eccentric, but Massey preferred solitude to their gossip and noise. It was during one of these solitary expeditions that he heard a sound so heartbreaking that it stopped him in his tracks. A child was crying somewhere nearby, their sobs echoing through the trees with a desperate, lonely quality that made his chest tighten. Massey pushed through a thicket of brambles, following the sound until he emerged into a small clearing. There, huddled against a moss-covered boulder, sat a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 7 or 8 years old, with wild auburn hair that cascaded down her back in tangled waves. Her dress was torn and muddy, and tears streamed down her dirt-smudged cheeks. "Hey there, little one," Massey said softly, approaching slowly so as not to startle her. "Are you lost?" The girl's head snapped up, her eyes strange, golden eyes that seemed to glow in the dappled sunlight fixed on him with a mixture of fear and hope. She hiccuped, trying to control her sobbing, but fresh tears continued to fall. "It's all right," Massey continued, kneeling down to her level. "I won't hurt you. My name is Massey. What's yours?" "Annie," the girl stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Annie, that's a beautiful name." Massey smiled warmly. "Can you tell me what happened? Where are your parents?" At the mention of parents, Annie's face crumpled, and she began crying even harder. Massey's heart broke at the sight. Without thinking, he moved closer and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "They're going to be so angry with me," Annie wailed. "I wasn't supposed to leave, but I just wanted to explore. I wanted to see what the human world looked like. And now I'm lost and I don't know how to get back home." Human world. The phrasing was odd, but Massey dismissed it as the imagination of a frightened child. He pulled out a clean handkerchief from his pocket and gently wiped her tears. "Everyone makes mistakes, Annie. I'm sure your parents will just be happy to have you back safe and sound," he said soothingly. "How about this? I'll help you find your way home. But first, you must be hungry. I have some bread and cheese in my pack. Would you like some?" Annie nodded hesitantly, and Massey sat down beside her, unpacking his simple lunch. As she ate, color slowly returned to her cheeks. He told her stories about the forest, about the plants he collected, and the small animals that lived among the trees. Gradually, Annie's tears stopped, and a small smile even appeared on her face. "You're very kind," Annie said suddenly, looking at him with those peculiar golden eyes. "Most humans would have been frightened of me." "Frightened? Why would anyone be frightened of a little girl?" Massey chuckled. Annie opened her mouth as if to say something, then closed it again, shaking her head. "Never mind." As the afternoon wore on, Massey noticed something strange. The air around them seemed to shimmer occasionally, and he could have sworn he saw shadows moving in the trees, large shadows, far too big to be any animal he knew. But whenever he looked directly at them, they vanished. "Annie," he said carefully, "you mentioned the human world. Where exactly do you come from?" The girl bit her lip, clearly conflicted. Finally, she stood up and took a deep breath. "I need to show you something, Massey, but you have to promise not to be scared." Before he could respond, the air around Annie began to ripple like water. Her small form seemed to expand, to change, and suddenly where the little girl had stood, there was something else entirely. A dragon, small by dragon standards, perhaps, but still magnificent, stood before him. Her scales were the color of burnished copper, and those same golden eyes looked at him with apprehension. Massey's mouth fell open. He should have been terrified. Dragons were creatures of legend, powerful beings that most humans would never see in their lifetime. And yet, all he could see was the same frightened child who had been crying in the clearing. You're a dragon," he breathed, and he transformed back into her human form, tears threatening to spill again. "I'm sorry, I lied. I'm the daughter of the Dragon Emperor. I snuck away from the palace because I wanted to see the world. But I got lost and I couldn't find my way back, and the Dragon Emperor's daughter." Massey interrupted, his mind reeling. He had comforted, fed, and befriended the heir to the dragon throne. If he had known, would he have acted differently? He looked at Annie's anxious face and realized that no, he wouldn't have. "Annie," he said gently, "thank you for trusting me with the truth." Before Annie could respond, the forest suddenly darkened. Massive shapes descended from the sky, and the ground trembled as enormous dragons landed in the clearing. At their head was a dragon so large and magnificent that it could only be the Emperor himself. Scales like midnight sky studded with stars. Eyes ancient and powerful. The Emperor's gaze fixed on Massey, and for a moment the herbalist was certain his life was about to end. But then the great dragon's eyes moved to Annie, who ran forward crying, "Father!" The Emperor transformed into a tall man with the same golden eyes, sweeping Annie into his arms. "My precious child, we've been searching everywhere for you." After their reunion, the Emperor turned to Massey. "You showed kindness to my daughter when she was lost and afraid. You asked for no reward, expected no recognition. Such compassion is rare in any species." Massey bowed awkwardly. "I only did what anyone should do for a child in need." "That," the Emperor said with a slight smile, "is precisely why your action holds such value." From that day forward, a friendship existed between the herbalist and the dragon princess, a bond forged not through politics or power, but through simple human kindness shown to a crying child in the woods. And sometimes, Massey thought, that was the most powerful magic of all.